Hi guys, my name is Cormate, and today I want to give you some commentary on a 23 Spires of Ascension that we tested a few weeks ago with the affixes Sanguine, Grievous, and Fortified. First thing we do in this dungeon is do a big pull and we pop Lust. As a Resto Shaman, your number one job in most of these pulls is making sure that you're always getting the Rebellious Fist cast on the Goliath. To make sure that you can get every single one, you want to make sure that you're kicking it in the last I would say about second and a half, but to be safe, always do it in the last second of it casting. That way you can also get the next one. If you try to do it like halfway through the cast or something, then you won't be able to solo kick the Goliath. Shamans are really valuable in this key because you can just solo kick the Goliath, and that leaves the rest of your group to be able to just focus on getting castigator kicks. It's really important that I get the burden of knowledge kicks because that puts out 2 dots and you can only dispel 1, and those things truck. And then they also do a dark lash cast that you can try and interrupt as much as possible, but mostly you just want to make sure that they're getting the burden of knowledge kicks, and there's 2 of those in that group. If you don't have a Resto Shaman, that pull gets a lot harder because you don't have enough kicks to cover the Goliath, because the Goliath goes in a 2-person rotation, even for other melee, unless it's another Shaman because we have the shortest kick in the game. Alright, so here we have another castigator, so we're making sure we're getting the Bird of Knowledge cast. We have enough kicks, so we're also mostly getting the Dark Lash cast as well. The Mender does do a cast that you can interrupt, but you don't have to worry as much about interrupting it because you can just purge the Force-Born Doctrine that's going to go out. It's just going to go on her, and then our Demon Hunter just purged it. The Mender also puts a weapon buff on himself. I'm not sure if it's a cast or not. Anyways, when it does happen, there's going to be a buff on him that you can purge, and it's going to drop a weapon on the ground, and the melee in your group or your tank, if you don't have a melee, can pick it up, and then go melee any of the mobs, and it does extra damage. It does quite a bit of damage, but I don't have an exact number because I haven't paid that much attention. So yeah, after we finish this group, we're going to go ahead and take the angel off. So there's the weapon right there. So he'll probably pick it up. Yeah, you're going to see our Windwalker. He just went and he picked it up right there. So now he has the buff, and he's doing big damage with it for when he gets on the angel. Oh yeah, you can roar the angel to make them go faster, I think. That's what our Raven was doing there. Usually whenever we get here, because you have to like wait in line, I always just go last, and I use that opportunity to get a drink. Because I'm the only one that gets any benefit from going last and gives me something to do. So this next pack, it's pretty common practice for people to always CC this Mender and keep it alive. That way you can have a weapon up during the Pride, because the weapon does a lot of, because it's based on your melees, so it's really good for single target compared to AoE. And again, in this group, there's a Goliath, so I'm going to be solo kicking it all the time. And then the rest of my group is mostly going to be focusing on getting the Burden of Knowledge kick right there. And then the 2 Vanguards, they just do damage to your tank. There's not really much to worry about here. So after we kill these 4, it's going to spawn a Pride, and like I said, we're going to have the Mender alive. I'm going to skip it a little bit ahead because they're all mobs that we've already talked about. Goliaths are big boys, yeah. Goliaths are also really annoying because they do their recharge and one, so you basically just have to stop hitting them, so we decided to break out the Mender early, that way we could start working on it. Well, so we had our DPS, had something to hit while we were waiting for the shield to go away. A little bit ahead, okay, yeah, so now we're on the Pride. So this is Grievous week, so Prides in this dungeon are going to be a little bit scarier because Grievous makes the Prides really spooky if you get behind. So normally on Grievous week, I'm casting way more early and way more often than I normally would. Normally I would spend like the first like 5 or 6 stacks. I probably wouldn't press like many healing buttons except for like healing ring, but because it's Grievous and I want to keep us out of Grievous as long as possible, I usually press that pretty early. I usually always ask for innervate on Prides when I use my Monotai totem because I'm using the legendary, even though the legendary, even though they even buffed it now, this was before they buffed it. Even though they buffed it, like innervate is really efficient to use with your Monotai totem if you're just spamming chain heal, and chain heal is really good for Grievous weeks because every hit of chain heal is making it so they lose a stack of Grievous. So that legendary, I think, on Grievous for Prides is just so good compared to the Riptide one, even though most weeks I think they're pretty equal. I think Grievous week in particular, Monotai one is super good on Shaman. Okay, so for this boss, I also usually make sure I save Link and I don't use it on that Pride because this boss usually trucks your tank, and it's pretty nice if they have an extra external for use on them, because you as a Shaman don't have an external and this boss really hurts. So usually try to save Link. And as far as DPSing these bosses, you just want to make sure that you're keeping Flame Shock on both of them as much as you can, and just mostly DPSing this boss, dodging balls. And as far as dispelling the debuff goes, I usually always keep it on the tank or myself. It doesn't hurt that hard. It's pretty easy to like passively heal through, but I'll always just leave on the tank because I'm already having to heal them anyways. And the spirits aren't that spooky where you need to worry about topping someone unless they're gonna get 2 in a row. I think she does like only 2 every time she gets up, so it's pretty unlikely because there's no other damage. Another thing make sure that your DPS aren't standing in the beam. You might want to start tracking that to make sure your DPS aren't standing in the beam. I remember like a couple weeks of the expansion, I was running with like a tank, and he said that he didn't know that this beam did damage or something, and we were doing like it was like a 19 at the time, but at that time that was a pretty big key. And he just kept dying. He's like, I don't understand why I'm taking so much damage. So yeah, just make sure you're not standing in that beam. But other than that, this boss from a healer perspective is pretty easy. I'm gonna skip ahead a tiny bit again. Boss is gonna die. So first thing we do is we go right and pull trash over here because we're actually gonna end up going left as far as the platforms go. So we pull these through either divers. Normally when you pull them, they do like some evade, bugging weird stuff. They just never fix these mobs. Been bugged since beta and they've never been fixed. Ring of Frost is really nice for when those things snap. You want to make sure you're trying to get as many kicks. Whenever it's just ether divers, you want to make sure you're getting as many kicks on the ether divers as you can. Later on, there's pulls where there's other things that are more important to kick on the ether divers. And most of the debuffs do end up going on your tank, and you can just dispel it too. Ideally, they're lined up so you can dispel them all at once. And also, it's pretty easy to CC their casts. Okay, so after this, we do the 3 hurlers. Or sorry, we're doing 4 hurlers. So here, Ring of Frost is also really good for when you get them in. See, our tank is going to pull them. We also had to make sure, because Sanguine Week, that we're dropping them away from here because we want to use this spot to line again. Okay, so we got our 4 skirmishers. We're waiting for the other 2 to come in with Ring of Frost. They didn't quite get around the corner though, so that's why they started doing the leaping thing and why we have a vortex down. This pull is actually going to go a little bit awry. Honestly, this pull usually almost goes awry and usually someone dies just because it's really scary with all the hurlers and how we're trying to line. Usually someone is always not perfectly tucked behind. And then normally when they get out like this, the tank is going to try and like go up here and try like lining them again so that they won't like cast on the DPS. So like this one's like running away. These mobs are just kind of hard to control. I've seen some groups control them with a lot of success, but it seems like whenever we come here, we somehow mess it up, and I'm not exactly sure why. I know one part of it is if your tank is in meta and he tries to line, that he's too tall and they can still hit him over the edge, but I don't think that's what happened here. I think someone just wasn't tucked behind correctly. Yeah, so that's all we're going to do on this side, and then we're going to go back to the other side, and now we're going to do all the cats in the Praetor, and that's going to spawn our next Pride. So these cats are really, really scary for your tank. So mostly you just want to make sure they go in, they get aggro, and they run away. Make sure you're using Earth Ellie. He's going to call for things like trees and slows, and make sure you're keeping down Earth Bind so he can kite pretty easily and stuff like that. Yeah, once he gets aggro on them, it's basically just going to be AFK for him and trying to keep the mobs in Flame Strike as much as he can so our mage doesn't cry. Normally in this pack, I want to make sure that I'm focusing the Praetor as much as possible because while he's kiting around, the Praetor is just going to be kind of standing by itself once he starts kiting, and it's not going to be getting a lot of the cleave. So since we have good funnel damage, or at least we did, our AoE cleave gets a bit better compared to our funnel damage with the patch that came out this week. But you mostly just want to make sure you're trying to focus on the Praetor. And he's basically just going to kite the rest of this, so again, I'm going to skip a little bit so we don't have to watch this part, because it gets pretty boring from here until we get to the Pride. Yes, after that spawns, we get the Pride. Again, first thing I'm doing is putting down Healing Rain, and then, like I said, I'm going to start casting a little bit earlier than I normally would. Normally I would maybe still DPS a bit before I'd start like actually casting spells, but because it is Grievous Week, I'm going to start casting a lot earlier. So I usually wait a little bit before I put down Monotide Totem. If I remember correctly, I don't press Ascend on this Pride, and I think that was mostly just had to do with the fact that this Pride just died much faster than I expected. There's actually no reason I shouldn't have just like pressed Ascendance right there when I pressed my Monotide Totem. I think I just didn't realize how fast the Pride was going to die. I'm used to it being at 20 stacks, somewhere around 30%, and not dying at 20 stacks. But yeah, at that point I just decided to greet it. But I highly suggest if you're in that situation, you just press your Ascendance for safety, because there's nowhere else in this dungeon that you're going to need Ascendance at all. There's like no scary pulls that you can heal through at least. This next pull is pretty scary if you don't have enough kicks. Luckily, if you are a Resto Shaman, this pull isn't that bad, but if you don't have Resto Shaman, this pull gets really spooky. With the 2 Goliaths, we're gonna lust it as well. So we do CC this Praetor. You normally, it's not because of a damage thing, it's mostly because of, Sanguine. In our previous Spires we done this week, the Praetors would just leap around and then they die on a Goliath, and it's really hard to get a Goliath to move. They're pretty slow. Well, not slow, it's just like they do long cast times, and since you're like short on kicks here, you can't be lobbing kicks early. And also when they do their recharge anima, if they do that instead of a Sanguine, it's just like such a huge time loss. We were even debating about going to this side, but this side is actually just so much faster because the other side has a bunch of squad leaders, and squad leaders are much slower. You either have to choose, do you want to do Goliaths, get kicks, and have to deal with them doing their little immunity phase, or the squad leaders, which prevent the AoE. But going the side with the Goliaths is still a lot faster because you can still AoE and cleave stuff down. Yeah, so that we let the Praetor free now that we know that it's not going to die on top of the Goliath, so we're safe. Those Praetors do still hurt quite a bit, but I think we're still gonna chain and we're gonna try and like line it or something. I don't think we're successful though. These mobs are really obnoxious. Yeah, so this next pull is another Praetor and just 3 other divers. So most on this next pull we can focus on, mostly just focus on killing the Praetors because those are the annoying ones and they're really hard to cleave. So want to make sure you're single targeting that mob. And then of course we're trying to get as many kicks on the other divers as possible to make sure that our tick doesn't have to use any of its offensives, because the next pull is going to have a bunch of cats in it, and again those are really, and a hurler, which makes it really obnoxious for kiting the cats around. Yeah, the Praetor finally came, and then we're just going to cleave these down, and again I'm going to skip a little bit because we've already talked about these mobs a couple times. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so again, we're gonna go to the next poll. So this has, okay, this one has a champion, and then the 2 other divers, and of course the hurler, which is gonna keep jumping around. It's so obnoxious. And then the champion, which you can kick, or again, you could just purge the debuff off of it. Yeah, you basically just want to make sure that you're like following the skirmisher around as much as possible, and your tick is just dragging the mobs on top of it so you can cleave, and using things like vortex and stuff like that to make sure that they're all staying together so you can cleave them. And then after this is going to be our Prideful. So I think on this Prideful I'm pretty much going to end up using everything, because again there's like outside the Prideful, like the trash in this dungeon, like outside of like as long as you're kicking, there's almost no damage going out. So it's pretty chill for that. Yeah, so then I just switched to my Monotai Totem. And so then I'm going to Chain Harvest into Ascendance. If you Chain Harvest and like the next global you hit Ascendance, it snapshots your Chain Harvest healing in your Ascendance. So it's basically like getting like a free cast inside your Ascendance. It's not just with Chain Harvest, you can do it with like any cast that has a travel time, including like Healing Wave Cleaves from Primordial Wave. But because it's such like a long cast time, and I just want a big, like the biggest extra like free cast inside my Ascendance, it's pretty common, especially on Grievous weeks, for me to Chain Harvest into Ascendance. Mostly because like at that point I wait till everyone's really low and like deep in Grievous before I do it, because it's like a land hand for the whole group. Okay, so for this, you saw we used our spear here. We're really scared of Sanguine here, so we're gonna make sure we're getting like Typhoons, and we're using Ring, and he's gonna heal, but I can't kick until the end because I'm too scared. So I kicked as soon as I could, but he definitely got some healing there. That's okay though, because this pull is still really efficient being able to pull it all together. It's just hard to pull off this thing, but most weeks though, it's not too bad. The only thing I think that makes this a little bit spooky might be like bursting, when all those ether divers die at the same time. But even then, it's only like a 6 stack. You can definitely heal through it, no problem. Yeah, and I'm just getting Goliath kicks, and the others were getting the, I think it was the castigator kicks. And then we're gonna finish off the Goliath, and then I think there's like a squad leader, and we'll go over to the second boss here after this. Alright, yeah, so this is just the squad leader. This is the only squad leader we have to kill on this side. Like I said, they're like, squad leaders are, I think, great for when you're in like a pug group, like to go on the left side, because they're like not spooky. They don't do anything except for like a frontal every once in a while. Whereas having to always make sure you're coordinating kicks on the Goliath, especially in a pug group, can be really spooky. And the Praetor. So then I'm just gonna skip over again until we cross the platform after we kill this Praetor. So it's forever. And I'm going to Hex the Ether Diver. We're getting CCs on everything else except the squad leader. You could also just leave the champion out with the squad leader when you're DPSing him down. Just because then you get the weapon for your melee or your tank at the same time when you purge it. And also that guy just doesn't really do a lot of damage, so it's not a big deal for you to be cleaving off of him. Yeah, you just want to kill the squad leader first, just so you're not having to deal with all the other mobs, because he does have the, I think it's like, it's not Inspiring Presence, but it's something like that where like it makes everything else take less AoE damage. So it's more efficient to just DPS him down solo. It's also really common in pugs, especially if you're going left, for you to spear this pack. Although when you go on that side, the pack is a tiny bit different, but it's still like the same amount of kicks and stuff. And so after we kill the squad leader, We just go in and start cleaving these 4 down. There's an Inquisitor, so you want to make sure that you're kicking Infernal. It does Dark Lash and Infernal Strife. Infernal Strife will just do damage to everyone in the group. So it's basically like the same priority as like kicking Burden of Knowledge was. Very similar mob. And then Forsworn Doctrine, we don't really worry about kicking that because we can purge it. And then Ether Diver, if we have extra kicks that we aren't using on the Dark Lash, the Inquisitor also does, and you can kick the Ether Diver, but for the most part, since there's only one, it's really easy to just dispel the Insidious Venom. Yeah, and then of course we have the Praetor here being really annoying, going around, not letting us cleave everything with it. And so after we kill these 2, Pride is going to spawn, and this is actually really Monka-esque. Because as you can see, the champion is on top of the Praetor, and he's going to die there, and our Praetor is going to decide that, man, this is a really, really sick spot to hang out. And he's just going to heal the full, and we're just going to have this really fun Grievous Prideful with a Praetor just dashing on us the whole time, and it gets really, really spicy. I think like 2 of our players die, or at least cheat death a couple times. Yeah. We were calling for our Boomkin to Cyclone it while it was in the Sanguine, and they were like debating over we should kill it or keep it CC'd, and all around it just turned into a huge mess. Huge, huge, scary mess. Yeah, I just popped Monetide. I still have Ascendance and Chain Harvest, but we are already so hecking almost dead. Sorry, that was a bad word. Very, very spooky Pride to try and heal. Mostly because it's Grievous. And the Praetor, but yeah. Yeah, our Boomkin dies there, he got dashed on. You saw our mage, he caughted because he got dashed on, and then when he got dashed on again, he became a seed. Very fun times. So yeah, now we're just killing the Praetor because he's still alive, and we kind of end up wasting our Prideful buff just by DPS him down. I think our tank was scared to go into the boss with the Praetor alive. I think he thought like someone was going to get the debuff and then get like dashed on or something, and he just didn't want to risk it, which is fine because we have like, because since that took so long, we have absolutely like everything for this boss, and this boss just ends up getting annihilated. Yeah, so for this boss, so I used Astral Shift there to live. So I'm pretty sure if I remember, yeah, I get the first bleed, and so what I do is I should pop my Earth Ellie. Oh yeah, I did pop my Earth Ellie because I'm running, I run Draven, so I have double endurance, so one of those is Refreshing Waters, which increases healing surge on myself, and the other one is Vital Acceleration, which gives me 30% more HP when I have my Earth Ellie out, so I use that as a defensive pretty often for debuffs in this dungeon, like on this boss, and like the 3rd boss, and then like or on like the 3rd angel, things like that, places where I need a defensive and I don't have one. And then normally during this this phase right here, so there's 2 ways. So normally I'm just gonna go around and I'm just gonna be Frost Shock spamming the boss. You could also choose to use your Spirit Walker's Grace here if you want to just maximize DPS. However, it might be a safer play for you to not use your Spirit Walker's Grace during the like Giga Ball phase, because you want to make sure that you have it for healing someone's debuff. It just depends on how scared of the debuff you are and how long the boss is going to live. If you want to use Spirit Walker's Grace there for DPS, or because it's a bit more DPS to be lava bursting than just frost shocking, of course. Or if you want to be safe and save it. Okay, so we're going to take this really long angel journey, and then we're going to we pulled just the Hellion. So the Hellion at the beginning of this expansion was really spooky because she did like the 4 lines that you had to dodge and stuff like that. But after they nerfed her, she just does like an aura of like AoE, which is it's still quite a bit of damage if you don't have any CDs and she lives a long time. But it should never eat up any of your healing CDs, at least not anything important. You can of course just like pop a tide or whatever so that you can like spend more time DPSing if you want. But it's definitely a really easy pull. The thing to note is that normally whenever we get to this, you're gonna see our demon hunter. He goes over here and he has to grab the spear. So normally we just trees this thing on pull, or just we know whoever pulls it ends up getting aggro. But since we have a lot of time, our group is just playing really slow and just waits for our tank to finish getting the spear and come pull the Hellion. Yeah. This guy is a really easy count, because as you can see, we pretty much just popped Convoke, we popped Combust. Pretty sure... Oh no, I don't think I'm actually not tracking weapons of order right here. That's kind of weird. I've updated my UI sentences. I think I'm tracking it now. This is one of the first, this is when we weren't running with the Windwalker that often. Yeah, so we just kill this Hellion, and then we're gonna go over here and skip. There's a couple ways you can skip. One of them is to have someone who can leap up, go up with like a mount, like a yak or something that you can jump onto, or you can go on the stairs, and from the stairs you can Dwarf Shadows, like from these stairs, you can Dwarf Shadows up here. If you stand like right there. or you can just have like this guy get caged or whatever. That pack kind of sucks because the Goliath is standing in a like the pool on the ground or something, makes him cast his Rebellious Fist like twice as often, so it's a lot harder to get kicks on it. And also it's just not that great of a pack. It's only like 3 mobs and they're casting like twice as often, and it's just like the same count. Yeah, so we're just gonna pull these usurpers. These usurpers kind of suck this week because it's sanguine. You have to make sure that you're killing them really, really even. I think one of the earlier spires we did this week was almost single-handedly lost just to these usurpers. Sorry, I don't know how to say that word. Just full healing after we killed them. And it's also really important that you tell your tank when you go into this, if it's a higher key, don't pull the boss right away. I need a drink. That's happened to me a lot where like we pull usurpers and as soon as they're like dead, like my tank just like leaps away and pulls the boss, and I've got like 50% mana, and this boss fight, depending on who keeps getting the debuffs, can be really mana intense. So I'm gonna get the first debuff and I'm going to press Astral Shift. And then we're gonna make sure we all stack. Depending on who has a debuff here, this is the one all Spirit Walker's Grace. Always Spirit Walker's Grace, one of the debuff drops, depending on who has a debuff if they need the healing at the time. Sometimes if I don't have Spirit Walker's Grace and we're dropping the debuffs and someone needs some amount of healing, I'll ask my Moonkin to like swift mend them while we're moving since I don't always have a heal. Something else that I do here that's I would not recommend is I put Earth Shield on our Moonkin for when he got the debuff. So if you feel like you need it to heal through the debuff and your tank doesn't need that much healing, that's the right move. But looking back on it, I think this is a mistake because then you have to keep moving around and you're healing your tank anyways. I think you should always keep your Earth Shield on your tank on this fight unless they're just completely self-sufficient and don't need any healing. My tank definitely needs healing on this fight. And once I put it on my Moonkin, I definitely leave it here way too long. But I watched this video back, I was like, man, what was I doing? So I just want to tell you guys not to do what I did there. So during the recharge anima phase, you just saw me press Chain Harvest. I'm also max ranging my Boomkin right now because he has like IQD. I didn't want him to be mana, and that happens a lot on this fight. That's the other reason it was important for me to always get mana on this fight, is because the burn phase would come, and he would always press IQD and then accidentally give me mana, and that was a big damage loss. Yeah, hopefully eventually here, I'm gonna remember to put, yeah I did, I put Earth Shield back on my tank. It took me way too long to do that. Alright, so our mage went ahead and blocked that one. Your mage can block one if you don't need them to orb soak at any point. If you do need their immunity to soak the orbs, then you're probably just gonna have to heal through all the time. It's also pretty easy usually for for mages to heal to live through the Purifying Blast because they have alter time. Since there's a cast time on the Purifying Blast, it's really easy for them to see, oh, I'm being targeted with that, I'm gonna alter at full health, and then after they get like low, they press it again, and you can actually just only have to put like a Riptide on them or something for them to heal. It's pretty strong. Yeah, this fight is really mana intense as well. I think I made a mistake. Like I often make the mistake here of getting a bit greedy with DPS and then I have to cast healing surges because I'm not casting healing waves. And then if I get really unlucky, I'll end up going in, which is what happens here because I'm pretty sure my mage is like, he ends up getting like 3 or 4 in a row here. So he's alter on that one, and then like the next 2 are gonna be pretty spooky for him. I'm having to just healing surge spam to keep him alive for the most part. Mostly because I'm also trying to heal the tank. That's why I'm panic healing surging, because I need to find some globals to heal him as well. Ascendance is totally fine to press here because the third angel isn't for another 3 minutes at least. And then also we won't be playing the final Pride. We'll be jumping down to get the rest of our count after. There's 2 ways people skip Pride, the final Pride in this dungeon. One of them is to, after you kill the third angel, is to drop the Pride in the corner. And then after you, cause like she does like some RP and then you drop the Pride. It's actually like one of the easiest Prides to skip. We just didn't do it this week because it's Grievous, so I wasn't confident I could like fully heal off the Grievous in time because Grievous does break into his spot. So we opt to do the strat where we're gonna jump back down at the end and kill the other side of his usurpers. And again, I pop my Earth Ellie there as my defensive at the end to live that last Purifying Blast. Okay, so I'm gonna skip a little bit, and I'm mostly gonna skip this first angel. This first angel's, she isn't like, we always go middle, left, right. So the first angel's always really easy because it just gives you the aura that makes you take increased damage. Really the only thing you have to worry about with this one is just making sure you're dodging the frontal, of course, and that you're healing your tank, which is super easy from the healer pop. And then we're gonna get ready for the Spear Lady next. So normally we decided we want to stack against the left and then keep like moving right as the spears spawn to make it easier for us to dodge and get over to the right and have like a safe space to go to towards the end. Every group does this in a different way. I don't necessarily think the way that we do it is like the best, most efficient way, because honestly we just YOLO it every time, and usually someone dies. We're like, heck it, it's fine, it's still time to key, who cares if someone dies. But yeah, so we're just good at battle rhythm. But yeah, these mobs are really annoying, especially with the angels in the back. For the most part, you just want to make sure that you're watching where the spears go. If you don't know how the spears work, so they go out in a T, so there's going to be one line this way, one line this way, one line this way. It's like basically where the edges of them are and where they're facing front and back is a direction. It's always going to go out, so you can look at it and know if you're going to be safe. You just have to make sure you're looking around and paying attention to where each of the spears are, and you're not going to get hit. Really obnoxious when you're in the back of the room though, because you can't really see that well. So right here, I don't think I'm that safe. Okay, no, I am that safe. I just have a really bad angle on this right now from where I'm standing. Okay, and then so the next angel is going to be the one that's really spooky. We saved a spear for it. We always save a spear for this angel, because she's gonna have the she's gonna be making us take ticking damage. We have the dot that's making us take increased damage. She's doing the frontal. She's holding the spears, so we're gonna lust and spear her to make sure we're safe. It's a little bit extra spooky since it is Grievous, but this thing usually doesn't live that long enough for the Grievous stacks to get that high. But since we're not doing Prideful, I'm not scared to pop all of my healing CDs here. Whenever we are killing Prideful after this, it's a lot scarier, because I'm usually trying to save like at least Monotide or like at least Ascendants to get through that Prideful. That thing eats a lot of them. Another thing you really want to look out for here is like tanks, when they get to this mob, like get very kind of like panicky, and they'll just start like kiting her from like over here to over here. And I think like most of the time when I've had trouble with this angel has been because I decide to stand here and then my tank starts kiting across the room and then I can't stay in range of that. And so I've been trying to stand more towards like the middle of the platform at the beginning of the sister, so that no matter where the tank drags the angel, I can stay in range. Yeah, now we're just going to, well, I'm just gonna get mana here after I drop combat. After the boss lets me drop combat. The RP is really annoying. And then we're just gonna pull the boss. So in this boss, we aren't going to bug her out. There was some tech for a while, if you guys were watching like keys like last week and stuff like that, we basically didn't have to do any mechanics if you went and did the like achievement spheres, whatever, and stuff like that. But they've taken those out of the game now, so you can't do that anymore. So you have to do this boss the normal way. The only kind of cheese that I know that still works is that when your mage throws a spear at her in the intermission, if they put Rune of Power down, then the spear will do extra damage. Our mage always just puts on Rune of Power and always just forgets to save his runes, so we don't even end up doing that. But yeah, this boss fight is pretty long. All you want to do is make sure that you are either like juicing up a cloud burst or making sure everyone's topped going into that dome phase, and that you are dispelling the what's it called, man? Lost confidence. Lost confidence. That thing kind of hurts. Usually it's not that big of a deal, but because it is like Grievous, anything that you would normally just let people like tick up from, you can't really allow to do, you can't do anymore, and so you have to be healing all the time. You saw that my moonkin innervated me there early. This is usually like a 3.5 minute fight, so if it's Grievous or you're just worried about mana in general, then I suggest that you get innervate early on this fight and you get another one later on. Same thing with the last boss. You can usually get 2 of them. Yeah, when these orbs are coming out, I just go get the orb when it's spawning so we can get it back as soon as possible. And then you're basically just healing. And I usually have like Chain Harvest or something coming out of this phase, but this time I'm not going to. But I am going to kind of skip again just because this boss, after that, it's just basically going on repeat. I'm mostly just playing a little bit of mana conservation since it's a long boss fight, it's Grievous, and we don't have Prideful going into this boss or like Lust or anything like that, but it won't be that scary. So you get past. Such a long boss fight, man. I don't know actually why I think my water shield is timed down. I didn't put back on. Yeah, we're in the last phase, so she should pretty much melt from here. And then after that, we're going to jump off the edge and go get the other usurpers. I do want to make sure that my team is kind of topped going into that, because they're going to take, like the Boomkin will take some fall damage unless they're really good about their wild charge. You can have the if you have someone who can't live jumping to the bottom, in this case it would be our Windwalker, but our Windwalker is going to jump on our Druid's back, then they can use an Avalanche Potion. But what we do is everybody has a way to live, so he is just going to wild charge with him on his back, so they're both gonna live, and I'm a Goblin, so I'm gonna Goblin jump at the bottom. You want to make sure that when you jump off that you backpedal. You don't have to backpedal, but I always suggest that you backpedal off to make sure that you're not gonna land like towards the middle or land in any mobs. It's always safe to just go in the middle straight and backpedal off the edge if you have that bound. If you don't have that bound, just make sure that you don't jump off the edge and that you're looking to make sure you're not gonna land in the middle, because then you'll die. Yeah, we just only have to kill 2 usurpers, and then that's the end of the key. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys learned something, and have a good rest of your day.